That's a great start to this week's podcast, Gav. Just go. Right, welcome back, everyone. It's Marvin here. I'm joined with Gavin Attore, Pride of Wales. How are you, Gav? You okay?
Dragon Slayer.
Right, I've done this before where you put you on the spot, ask you a question. It's your icebreaker. Are you ready for this? No, it's a good one. I know last time I asked you this was about peanut butter, but this one's more difficult than peanut butter. Smooth or crunchy. Put your answers down and send them in. Right, you're going to go for a meal with one person. You get a chance to just talk to them, eat with them, chat with them, interview them. But you can only pick one. Here's your options. Number 1, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
Number 2, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Tell me about it. I was thinking about this a bit there. I was thinking, Gav's going to get so stuck on this one. So stuck. I honestly, in my head, I was out running. And, well, we're talking about football training today, but it was when football training got cancelled on me at last minute. I thought I'd just go and do some sprints myself, do a bit of jogging. Anyway, and I was thinking, I'm going to ask Gav that. I don't know why it came into my head, but now it's in yours. Go.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so difficult.
I reckon I'd have to play it like, I'm going to go and have dinner with Arnie. We're going to become best mates, and he's going to introduce me to The Rock.
Strategy. There's always a strategy.
There's always a way around this, son.
My problem, right, if the thing is with me, because I've got a mind of a 4-year-old, I can't concentrate on much for too long. I would like to, in my head, the sensible one would be Arnie, because you could actually have obviously he's been part of California. He was like the state governor of California at one point. Yeah. So he's obviously very included with world politics and economy. So you'd end up probably asking him like secrets about the White House and that kind of stuff. But then if it's The Rock, you'd be asking about films, wouldn't you? And like the WWE, who was his favourite wrestler growing up and all that. And his dad was a wrestler. So then you get pulled right back into your childhood.
You think you'd still be talking films with Arnie, though. You think of the films he's done.
God, everybody get down. Yeah. Predator, Commando.
Loads of them.
Name some more.
Twins,
yeah. Everyone says that me and my brother are like that. I'm not the tall one. Yeah. Offended. Conan the Barbarian.
Mate, absolutely class.
Running Man. Oh, yeah. Well, I remember when I was a kid, we used to go and stay at my grandparents in the summer. Just it was good. And we had a leisure centre at the bottom of the street. We used to go every day. And they did this thing in the summer, and every night for a week, they played a different Arnie film. It was brilliant. Saved you going to Blockbusters with your card.
Think about the films he's done with like Stallone as well, and all the people like this. You'd have hours of conversation about film with him.
Well, there you go, everyone. Thanks for listening. Wonderful that we've ruined your whole life having to think about this, such a difficult task. This is what we get up to in our brains, trying to think of challenging questions to health and fitness, and that's probably the most challenging one. But anyway, I don't know. Send us what you think. There's so many different reasons for both, but it's only the same as if I said to you, which one would you rather sit down with, Denzel Washington or Samuel L. Jackson? I'd be like, I'm so stuck. Anyway, I'll ask you that next time.
I got a week to think about that. I'll text you later.
Right, we've shown our age, and that's probably the purpose of today's talk, because we've been talking about just football training. It's such I know, and people listening might go, like football, turn off, but it's not. We're just talking about sort of, more of like a vets league, like an over 35s thing. Men that want to get back into it. There's loads of social and mental benefits that we all get. I understand that. But the most common reason why people don't keep playing sport when they get older is because the fear of injury and it then impacting their family commitments and their job. And I know that was my case. That's why I stopped. It was if I break my leg again, then I can't travel, and I was self-employed, and all that came to mind. So I stopped, and I stopped when I was at my fittest and the peak, which was frustrating for me. And now I'm in that vets category. I'm thinking, well, actually, I'm the youngest. So I might be the best. I very much doubt it. There'll be a 50-year-old running rings around me. So that's where I thought we'd draw today's conversation. What's your thoughts on vets football injuries, Gav? You thought about it?
A lot. because if you look at what I'm programming now for guys that are coming into the program, it's around, like, not so much vets league training and stuff, but it's looking at guys that have been athletic in the past. They've had potentially a sporting background, or they've trained previously, and they want that anchor to keep them going and something to focus on and motivate them further in life. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, I did a post the other day on like some of the not excuses, but some of the complaints people have. Like, imagine, like, my dad, right? You know my dad very well. Like, oh, my knees aching, or my shoulders aching, and it's just old age. No, it's not.
No,
it just ain't. Like, it's because you stop moving and you stop using the body in a way that you used to. So now, for example, my dad in the coffee bar, he's making coffee all day. He's hunched over. He's doing the same monotonous thing over and over. So he's getting an overuse injury. But in his head, he's saying it's because I'm getting old. Well, no, if you were working out and you were offsetting that function that you were doing every day, then you wouldn't have the shoulder issue. You'd be stronger through the biceps. You'd be stronger through the shoulder. You'd be stronger through your upper back. So those things wouldn't come in. Yeah. Potentially. Obviously, there's always an if or but going back to like the vets league thing, you've got a lot of guys that still want to play and still have that anchor and still have the banter with the lads. And to be honest, when you get to a certain level of football, and when we were younger, we might have played at a higher level than we did, right? But when we finally left the footballing thing, it was more that we missed the banter with the lads. The getting together every week. Like we said before we come on the calls, like just saying stupid shit. Like we say stupid shit together. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think a lot of the lads miss, and they don't want to be sort of missing out on that. So it's like, if you're injured, you don't go. Do you know what I mean? So it's like keeping them injury free as possible. So they can still do that. And we spoke about social isolation in terms of the lockdown and things like that. As well. So we'll touch on that a little bit today as well, I suppose. If
you look at football, and football after fitness, football is probably the thing I talk about the most and love the most. It really, in fact, don't tell my family that. What I mean is, from an interest point of view, it sounded really bad. But what I mean is, when I look at football, I mean, growing up from sort of 11, 12 up to, I'd say, 20, I was a goalkeeper. And it was probably because more of a fitness reason. I was the widest, so I filled more of the goal. And I didn't have the fitness growing up to run. I didn't have the aerobic ability. And it was only through going to college and keeping going and learning about exercise where I really started to put my knowledge to the test. And, I entered the fitness industry for my own selfish reasons. It was my own health. Not you get these people saying, "Oh, I want to help everybody and cure the world of a obesity epidemic." That was never my goal. It was always help me because I was in that epidemic. I was the problem. So when I was looking at goalkeepers, I'd always look at the time growing up. It was like David Seaman. He was like England number one. He was Arsenal goalkeeper, and it was brilliant. But as he got older, he moved less and did less. But the commentators would always say that with a goalkeeper, it's positioning. He's in the right place more often. So in that specific position of sport, it's all about your ability to judge and perceive where the ball's going, because you don't know where it's going. And what we've seen through football as it's changed, the ball's changed and the leather's changed. And what you get now is the whip on the ball, and you get like someone like Cristiano Ronaldo knows to kick a ball in a certain place to make it whip on a free kick, which is all unbelievable science. That never happened when it was a big leather casey when we were playing. But you just smash it, don't you? You smash it, hit and hope. But now I'm thinking more outfield anyway, because I prefer to play outfield and be in the action, and I'm fit enough for it, hopefully. Going back to sort of the injuries and the older age of a person playing sport, and this could be football, it could be netball, it could be tennis, it could even be golf. It's about the ability to change direction or decelerate rather than accelerate, which is always, I know from our education, always been the topic of conversation. We always talk about how you decelerate load and speed and force, never accelerate it. And if you can improve that, that will make your turn quicker. That's where the most tension's on ligaments and tendons. So I think that's where people can really get those marginal gains, which actually it means that you don't have to go and run in 4, 5, 6 times a week. You don't have to be doing 10Ks all the time, because that's the sort of unsport science approach. It's, I'll just do loads of something. Yeah. And then what happens is when they go and play sport, when they go and play tennis, hockey, golf, whatever it is, they still get injured. So it's not about just going and doing cardio work at the gym and sitting on the bike. It frustrates me when people say, I'm going to the gym, and they play football. And I say, what did you do at the gym? Sat on the bike for 20 minutes, went to cross trainer and ran. But why are you doing anything to strengthen yourself to prevent you getting injured?
Yeah.
That's my bugbear with it.
And it goes back to, like, they don't know what they don't know, right? So the only way they would think to improve something is, I've got to be fitter, they'll go and run. And they won't, and that's the problem. They don't know the fact that, okay, if I increase my strength of my anterior tibialis, which is a fancy word for muscle at the front of the shin. People get shin splints all the time, right?
Yeah.
So when they run it, if they start running, I got shin splints, it hurts, I'm just not fit enough or whatever. They just keep, they think it's a conditioning thing, when actually it's a strength thing. So eventually it moves from there and just goes elsewhere, because the body will go, well, fuck, I can't continue doing it that way. So another muscle will take over. Right. And then you get a back issue, for example. Yeah. So there's one of the issues there. And we know in terms of knee health, for example, potentially back health as well. If you can, for example, get a tibialis raise where you're doing around, let's say, 10 to 20% of your body weight for reps, and I mean 20 reps for the tibialis raise, your risk of knee injury goes down massively. And that's to allow, like, your knees should go over your toes. Like, you should be able to decelerate that. And the front of the shin helps decelerate it, as well as the calf muscles as well. So you have to look at what the calf muscles do. Are you training the calf muscles? Yeah. And then you have to look at the big ones as well, like the glutes, the hamstrings, because they decelerate the knee. I remember when we were working with Gary Gray over in the States, the thing that really switched me on for the analogy he gave was, like, the hamstrings were like reins on a horse.
Yes.
They go around the front and they help decelerate the knee and control the knee in all those 3 planes and stuff. Yeah. Well, if you've got weak hamstrings, especially if you're playing football or netball, like if you've got a cut and turn and you've got weak hamstrings, weak calves, a weak front of the shin, eventually you will get injured. Yeah. Period. Definitely. It's going to happen. Yeah. But you have to know how to sync all that up. It's not, like, we had, like, coming from a physiotherapist or physical therapist background, like Gary in the States, he would integrate everything first and then make sure everything was working in sync. Whereas from a strength and conditioning point of view, we look at potentially isolating something first, getting the strength back up into that, and then we put that into more big bang for buck movements. Yeah. Because we, like, in the strength and conditioning realm, especially when I was doing the S&C for the football club, it was like, well, how am I going to get them from, like, how am I going to get them doing functional movements, for example? And this is the problem with it. Their function is football. Yeah. Like, if I give them more moves for football, that's another overuse injury. I'm just using the same thing over and over, and I'm decreasing the nervous system. Yeah. I'm just overloading them. Yeah. Same argument we had with HIIT training when we spoke about that. You just keep doing the same HIIT training, you're overloading. Your risk of injury goes up. Exactly. So if I can, like, isolate that muscle a little bit and strengthen it up, and then they go and integrate that into the actual function that they're going to do on the pitch. Yeah. Then essentially the proprioceptors and all that type of stuff that we learned, all those messengers from each joint, from each muscle, from each ligament, from each tendon, would start to talk to each other effectively, because now the shin is a bit stronger and it's able to decelerate a bit more, so things can start switching on. So it might be that inhibition effect. It's like, I'm too weak at the minute, so I'm going to switch myself off and something else is going to have to take over. Definitely. When you talk, it resonates a lot with me. I had a guy recently talk to me or ask me some advice on injuries. And I think that one of the things he said was, look, I'm just stuck because you go on the internet and everything conflicts everybody. You follow 10, 15 different fitness professionals or influencers, and they're all doing something different and advising something different. And I said to him, look, it'd be the same if you went to 10 doctors. In most cases, not all. But what I'm saying is, everyone that works with people in a health setting has a strategy, whether it be integrate, isolate, integrate. There's all those different ways that we do it, and they're all fine, but there's an end goal to it. And I think that from my learning, and when I stopped doing this, that was when my career improved and I became a better person.
when you see somebody performing an exercise like a leg press, if your first thought process is, I don't believe in using resistance machines, I prefer to do freely moving exercises or free weight exercises, you don't know why they're starting there and then why they're going to, and where they're going to get to. You just spoke there about, first of all, maybe isolating, building the strength, and then moving to integration. But if I didn't know that was your strategy, and I just see you doing a tibialis raise or a leg extension, I'm going to go, no, I'm into more movement training. I'm not going to read your stuff. Or the worst one, you're a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
It really frustrates me when people say that. I go, okay, yeah. All right then, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm those people that keeps body fat low, stays strong, and doesn't get injured.
Yep.
Fine. You put me in that amazing category. But that's not what I'm trying to achieve. So I just think that what I did is I took that hat off and said, understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. And that is where we are right now, me and you, and I'm putting myself in there with you as well, is we're very good at understanding both sides of the fence, because there's no need to be on one. There's no need to be a fence in the first place. But the industry is very divided. So you've got to be open to that. Your strength and conditioning for whatever sport you're doing has to have elements of both. It has to succeed.
Agree, mate. Agree. Like, if you take that, the approach, like, I'm trying to give an analogy now as well, because like you said, people think that if you use a machine, you're a bodybuilder, or it's not functional for the sport or whatever. But if somebody needs strength and somebody needs muscle mass, they're going to have to do that at some point. But the problem is they think that's the only thing that they do, which is the problem. So I had an issue with a boxing coach years ago when I was training a fighter, that they said they shouldn't do weight training with heavy weights because you're trained to be a bodybuilder. I was like, he doesn't understand. So instead of going off and like, he doesn't understand, doesn't know what he's doing, it's like, right, how can I get this person to understand what I'm trying to do instead of throwing my toys at the pram and thinking I know everything. So I had to sit and have a meeting with the coach and say, look, all reps and sets do is look at what the person, like what the programming of what the person needs. So for example, if the person that I was training, this person was fast, it hit, like the lad hit hard as hell as well, right? So if you look at like strength work for him, potentially based off the test that I gave him, there was only so much percentage I could increase the speed and power from him. There was only so much more I could do because he's very like fast and hard already.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much limited with how much more I can get out of that. So his main problem was capacity to output that power and speed. But then I also, if he wants to get even faster and hit harder, I had to do a test. So I did something called an eccentric deficit test. So I had to measure the difference between his concentric force production and his lowering strength, right? So technically you should be stronger in your lowering eccentrically when the muscle lengthens compared to when you concentrically punch, right? So we did a test. We did a 1RM test on his bench, on his incline press. And then from that point, we did an eccentric deficit test. We used the same weight first, and we extended the eccentric. So instead of going 4 seconds down and then 1 second up, we found his 1RM. We just did an 8-second eccentric. So we had to control it for 8. You put it on the pins, and then we racked it back up. He had his rest, and then it would be a specific rest period. And then we increase the load again, and then we lower again just for 1. Back on the pins. Next set, we increase the load. So we then start to find how the difference between the concentric and the eccentric, right? So there's a specific percentage you ideally should be. Now, this is the problem where the coaches didn't understand what I was trying to do. The problem we had with the fighter was as soon as we did the first eccentric, he came down, instead of 8 seconds, he got about halfway and just dropped. So that's telling me his eccentric strength isn't as good as it needs to be.
Yeah.
Right. So if we look at eccentrics, that helps you put on a little bit more muscle mass. So if you look at the muscle fibers that he has, he's pretty much reached the potential speed and power development of them. So now I have to lay down more to make them faster and stronger. And that way he can get faster and stronger. Make sense?
Yeah.
So my goal for the training program was to put eccentrics in for a specific amount of time and then give him speed work to make those fibers faster and stronger. So that's why I had to look at what time period have we got to do that. Is it realistic for me to achieve that? And once I laid that out to the coach, he was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But nine times out of 10, people just go, that's bodybuilding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
For footballers. It'd be the same thing for footballers.
Yeah.
Like, granted, if you look at the speed and the way footballers move nowadays, or even tennis as well,
yeah,
at some point you may still need hypertrophy work, but it doesn't mean you're going to be jacked.
No,
right? It's just it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. All right, cool. Let's just pick up on a few bits then for general pop, people that are at home thinking maybe I don't understand the testing process or what I should be doing or anything like that. So just fire through a few of those exercises. And I think it's quite good recently, and this wasn't planned at all. You did a post recently about making your knees bulletproof. And the exercise you had on there was the first one which is one that, you know, we used to do at fitness retreats when we used to have people on there, and was the front foot elevated split squat.
Yeah.
If I could, anybody comes to me and I say that wants an exercise, it's that. It's just that. There's nothing else. It's the go-to for me. So is it still for you? I mean, I saw it on your post. So is it still one of those? If anyone listening to this should be doing a split front foot elevated split squat.
One of the best exercises you'll end up doing. Like, you can still improve muscle mass with it when you like really go down to the nitty gritty of program, and you can still put muscle mass on with it. But you can also, if you look at today's society, you're going to be sat down a lot. So it's going to help you with full range at the ankle, full range at the hips. It takes the low back out of the equation. So it's going to help you with low back health, knee health. Your knee should go as far past the toe as possible. The regressions, you're going to put your front foot elevated so you can get deep and down into the hips. So you're going to stretch the adductors, the hip flexors, the quads, and then you're going to structurally balance out left to right as well. So if you look at the basic premise of the split squat, that is basically getting you ready for the back squat. That's all it is, right? If you look at that front foot, when it's in the bottom position, you should have slightly toed out, the knees going out over the toe, literally like laterally rotating a little bit. Now, if I pause that bottom position and then I place my other leg in the same position, basically that's a astergrass squat. So what you're training and getting yourself prepared for is the squat. It doesn't mean you have to squat to improve your performance. You could just carry on doing versions of the split squat, like there's hundreds of versions of the split squat, right? So
I just think it's the gospel. It's chapter 1 of the gospel, isn't it, really, fitness?
Yeah.
It really is.
If I don't know a lot about somebody and I know they need leg strength, I know they need flexibility or to improve their active range. So like when they're moving and so on, before they start lunging and all that type of stuff, I always go with the split squat.
I mean, we've used it in so many different connotations. When we was out in Asia, we used it as an assessment tool. You know, looking at ankles and knee mobility and hip flexibility, you know, it's so good for so many things. One of the fitness retreats we were on, we had a lady that, you know, she was very overweight. She had bad knees. It was a fantastic version for her. So she couldn't do the squats and the walking lunges and all the things everyone else wanted to do, but she could do that very well. And by the end of the week, I remember that it was one down in, it's a big white house, something beginning with L. I want to say Lulworth Cove. There you go. Yeah. We was there up at the top where the gazebo, where ultimate failure on that gazebo before. We had the tennis courts we was training on, and she just did it there. And she was, by the end of the week, she was phenomenal at it. And me now, I mean, that's my warm up or activation exercise. If I'm going to go running, play sport, lift weights, anything, but I also do it at the end, because one of the things that if you know me is I've just got these legs that are like tree trunks and they don't really do much. And in Craig Barton's words, all quads, no action, he says to me. And as soon as he said that, it ruined my life forever, because the name's it's always stuck. No, it's Marvin with all the quads and no action. Right. But when I run, I do this sort of low leg. It can only be described as a shuffle, because it doesn't look like running. Now, it is like a little bit of a John Barnes shuffle, but I forgot to do the song. But we'll do it on another episode. But one thing that it does do is it means I don't drive the knee up high. I don't work the glute and the hip in a full range or a very good active range. It's a very short range I work in. Now for endurance, it's great because I save energy. And if I do it well, because I've always ran with that gait. So for me, it's an efficient technique for me. I do this little bum shuffle and I end up going quicker than everyone else because my cadence is fast and I can just maintain it for long times.
Yeah.
But what I need to do at the end of the run is I've not got that full drive through the glute. So if I've ran for 40 minutes, I've never had good range through the hip. So I have to do my front foot elevated split squats at the end of the run to really work and get the stretch out that I need through those. Because long term, that'll just build up and I'm injured myself.
Yeah, like even with running as well, I've changed my thought process in terms of I don't think the hip flexors are so tight. Like they're tight for sure. In a certain way that they're short and tight, not.
Yeah.
But it's in my opinion, it's from a weak position. It's because they're weak. So if you look at, people are sat down all day, so that means their hip flexors are tight. Well, they're in a shortened position. They're not lengthened.
Yeah.
It's just they're weak. We don't activate them enough.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to use a lot of hip flexor action with a lot of clients, especially runners, or people that have to do or want to do running as part of their fitness or their sport or whatever. And the more we strengthen the hip flexors, the better they get in terms of running. So that way your stride can lengthen. You're not doing that John Barnes shuffle, for example. I'm trying to think of I think from my numbers, it's around 10% of your body weight for reps. And that's standing upright. And you basically just drive your knee up. You can get a weight strapped to the foot. And you could also do like hanging knee raises as well to start working the hip flexors. Because people think that's like an ab exercise, where if you go from bottom all the way to just parallel, that's hip flexors. And if you go from parallel up to your chest, like a hanging gar hammer raise is called, that's abs.
Yeah.
Right. So I tend to start doing that, or we can do isometrics. I remember going with we down at Tom Crudgeon's place in Bath, and we were doing like calisthenic stuff.
Yeah.
Or like gymnast. There was an ex GB gymnast there, and he battered us. Like,
I remember.
Jesus, I've never trained as hard, and he was just isometric holds.
Yeah.
And we were doing hip flexor holds, like working through the abs, holding your body weight in these positions, and just raising your ankles off the floor, holding. Yeah. Your hip flexors got strong as hell.
Yeah. I remember doing it. We did it in Indonesia. That time when the course was delayed because everyone's house flooded on the bottom level. Yeah. Everyone was late. I remember us going and doing it in that gym in JJ's celebrity fitness gym.
Yeah, it was brutal, mate. Like, but you think the hip flex is actually a deep core muscle. Like it's attached to the low back, goes up and it stabilizes the hip. So if that's weak, and if that is weak and you hit the ground when you run, let's say the front foot goes down and hits the ground, and that's weak, you think that front leg's going to rotate in a little bit. So if that doesn't actually switch on and hold and stabilize the pelvis, then your glutes are going to do more, your low back's going to do more.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, right? It's like isolate that, let's get it stronger a little bit, and let's see how we can integrate that then into movements. And bang, you're away. So
there's always that common scare almost of, is it tight or is it weak? And I think that's definitely one of them that people always say, oh, it's tight, and they don't do anything for it, and then they still have the same problem 6 months, 12 months later. So are there any other go-to exercises for you? I mean, like those ones already stand out straight away. Are there any good ones, like any ones that I'm trying to think, things that people could do at home that they could do, you can think of off the top of your head?
I did a post on step ups as well. It was
I was going to say
Poliquin or a heel elevated step up.
Yeah.
I would start there because it takes the calf out of the equation. So your heel is supported, you're pushing off the big toe, and you're working the muscle that helps stabilize the knee. It's not the only thing that does that, but you'll work that muscle. So it's like that teardrop muscle on the inside.
Yep.
That actually, like people think it's just there. That muscle actually inserts right on the lateral hip, right? So right up on the lateral hip. So it's if you start strengthening that up, that's gonna help with stability on the lateral hip when you run as well. So that's one I would go to. Now, the reason I would start with the heels elevated is because people have weak calves.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Peterson Step Up, which is the next one, you've got to do like a mini calf raise. You decelerate down. Yeah. And then you contract with the muscle back up, land your heel back down, and so on. It's like the video demonstrations on my Instagram. But those two, like if you look at the heel supported step up or the Poliquin step up, it was Charles coined it. Like people look at it and go, oh, that was all right. I actually had a client message me this morning. He said, I actually finally watched the Poliquin step up video and I did it the way you did it on the video. Yeah, murder.
Yeah.
One of the hardest exercises.
Yeah.
You will do, like, it's horrendous. I remember one of the first programs Charles and Andre put me through on a PICP. We were doing reps of 25 with like 20 kilo dumbbells in each hand as part of a GBC death surgery type thing. Mate, I was gone. My legs were gone. It was horrendous.
There's no way my quads have got any action to tolerate that. I'm telling you, I break my legs.
It was brutal. But they obviously they were sort of testing us on the course and making us work hard and things like that. But once you start to understand that can help you and structurally balance you, injury prevention stuff, it goes to a different position then.
Definitely. I think from a testing point of view, one of the things, we spoke about testing a second ago, and for people out there that don't have sports science knowledge, testing, coaching knowledge, or even anything to do with it, what kind of tests for sport, recreational sport, would you say? Because the way I see it is, if you're going out and just running, you can look at your time, your distance, which is fine. But I also like, what in occupational health, you call it work-related tests. So what's the work-related tests would you put in for someone that was, wanting to play tennis or vets league football? I suppose it's not really this same sport.
Coming from a fitness point of view or an injury prevention point of view?
I'm just thinking someone that wants to go to the park, they've just got nothing with them. Maybe some, not even cones, maybe just some jumpers. I'm thinking, what could they do to benchmark where they're at now and build on it? So more just general fitness, less, not necessarily injury prevention.
So if they had, is a really good fitness test. This is like, if you got nothing, you could space out 5 meter distances.
Yeah.
And you could do a running specific test. So it's going to teach you to turn and run, things like that. But if you set out 5 meter cones, I think we maybe discussed this in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
But 5 meter cones that you do for distances out there for 30 meters, right? So by maths, that should be 6, right? Hopefully I got that one right. But basically, you get from your start point, and you're basically just doing shuttle runs.
Yeah.
So once you hit one, you go back to the start, and then you go past the first one, go to your second one, you go back to the start, and so on. And you do like doggies, right? So you go try and get up to the 6th. But every time you pass a cone, you add 5 meters. So like you go from the start to the first, that's 5. You go back, that's another 5. You go past the first, that's another 5, that's 15. You go to the second, that's 20. You go back 25, 30, like so on, right? So you build up the amount of meters that you run. Now, you do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And over the minutes that you do, you have to total up the amount of meters that you run, right? So let's say, for example, in your first 30 seconds, you hit 50 meters. And then the second 30 seconds, you hit 40 meters. And then the third 30 seconds, you hit 25 meters, 15 meters. Do you know what I'm saying? So what you've got now is, what do you need to work on? You need to work on capacity. You need to build up your aerobic fitness, because you can't keep up that level of output.
Yeah.
So that's a real good way to start training for running and turning direction. It's going to give you a direct marker in terms of what you need to work on. So if you're constantly doing 40 meters, 40 meters, 40 meters, 40 meters, you're going to start to need to work on sprint intervals or speed work to get out faster, so you can move to the cones quicker.
Yeah.
That way you can increase the distance. And over time, you'd have to work on the capacity of that distance.
Yeah.
So for field stuff, tennis, netball, where you got to cut and turn, to cover ground and output, like that's a fantastic little field test that you could do.
Oh, sec. Oh, here's the cones.
There we go.
And off we go. Simple as that.
Like you could even take pairs of socks and use pairs of socks on the floor as your markers, right? So it's cost effective. You know exactly what you need to work on then.
I've got mini cones. They're like little mini dish cones. I'm trying to look for. Oh, here they are. I know that people that are listening can't see this, but you think of a normal generic football cone. They're just smaller versions. Exactly. And that little bundle there, I don't know how many are there, but it comes a little carrier. I think that was like $9.99 on eBay. They're nothing. And something like that to just take to the park. You know, I've got one literally at the end of my street to jog there, bit of a warm up, throw some cones down, do that. That's all we did through lockdown. You know, we didn't have access to anything. We had to adapt. So how can I adapt and come out a bit better? Well, I spent time building my aerobic capacity, building that. Now I've come out of it. You know, I didn't go into lockdown thinking, I want to play vets football when I come out of this.
Yeah.
But now I've come out of it. I've looked at it. I've gone, hold on a minute. I've built my ability to run, to turn, accelerate, decelerate. My chances of injuries are lower. I feel better and more flexible because I've had time to work on the fundamentals, and I've missed social interaction. So what do I need to do? I need to go and play football again. Sign me up.
Yep.
Who wants me? That's it. That's all we need to do is put this video out. And I put a few training videos out there. Like, what's his name? He used to play for Man United. He went over to Germany. It's Owen Hargreaves.
Oh, yeah.
He did a little video. He was a free agent, put a video of himself training on YouTube. And then I'm sure it was then Man United went, oh, we'll sign you. Look like you've still got it. Because he was playing out in Germany. He wasn't really getting anywhere.
Right, let me get a video on.
Yeah, just get you.
Cavanelli's coming back.
Yeah, get your photo reel out there. Get out there. All you got to do is go down the park and just hit in some absolute monster shots. Just keep practicing and only put on the ones that go in. You know, Arsenal did it with a guy called Mohamed El Neni. You look at his show reel; he was unbelievable.
Yeah,
big disappointment. Never look at a player's show reel. It's like when you watch you know, that thing every year, Soccer Aid. There's the guys, the freestylers, the footballers.
Yeah.
And you watch them in the freestyling, Gav, they are incredible. They're just so good at it. You put them 11 aside.
It's all over the shop. Yeah.
Questionable. Anyway, right. That's a great conversation today because it's giving people information about injuries, playing sport. We've related it to football. We've done a bit of boxing, which is great. They're really transferable to anything. One thing that we didn't mention there, which we probably should have, I was going to mention it and we went off with a train of thought. I mean, last week when I went football training, it was cancelled, and so I ended up doing it on my own. One of the things I looked at and I missed because it was on, it's like a public, it's called the race course, it's a big open field, loads of pitches on there. I just looked at the grass and I thought, this is, honestly, it's the most bumpiest thing. It's like, it's not flat. And I think that, I mean, we did a lot of time. I remember some of those scenarios when we did GIFT and they'd put in scenarios of somebody that had torn ACL, and then which of these things, and you had sort of 5 different aspects, what would be your priority order? And it was like surface, do you change the footwear? Do you change, you had to put them in order, and then you had to rationalize why you put, I'm going to train on different surfaces before you did something else. So I know that from that process, we learned about proprioception. So like the signaling from joints and muscles to the brain, how your body responds to changes or tensions and temperatures. And I remember us talking about horses. It was related to horses. Said when a horse has had a fall or had an injury, the way they rehabilitate them so their proprioceptors work. Because remember, they're 4 legs, not 2. I mean, don't forget that horses have got 4 legs. I don't even know why I said don't forget. Like you didn't know. But I think it's because I was going into American mode. I think I went to American mode there. Because they've got 4 feet, their foot position, especially if they're a jump horse, was foot position when they land. So for them, they had to now think about proprioception. So they put them in swim pools and on different surfaces so that they could adapt to those positions. And then when they were on those different surfaces, whether it be rubber, whether it be wooden bark, whether it just be flat ground, that stimulus from the ankles up through the knees into the hips, it was always changing, just like a football pitch would. So I suppose without relating it too much to horses, the way I'm going with this conversation is if you are someone that's going back into sport, the best thing for you to do would be to go down to the park and wear your football boots. Or if you're going to play tennis, go to the tennis courts. If you're playing netball, because so many times people go to the gym, they wear the running shoes, but then they go and play football and they wear football boots. So you wear the right equipment or the specific equipment for what you're trying to do. Try and go to the area, to familiarize yourself with the surface and the changing circumstances, because you could spend all this time running on a treadmill, go on a field, and then your foot goes down a ditch and a hole. You can't stabilize and decelerate that. There's your injury. Nothing to do with your training. Now it's the surface. So you've got to be more specific with that. So that's where you get a challenge, and you find that a lot of that twisting and turning on different surfaces makes a big difference. I broke my leg because at the time when I broke it, the Nike and a lot of sports brands had come out with those blades, those football boots that were blades, they called them. So they weren't round studs. Now, as I've alluded to earlier, I'm a heavier person. I was heavy when I was growing up. So when I was 15, I weighed 15 stone. And I was wearing blades, and I remember it was Good Friday, because every Good Friday for the rest of my life, I never exercised on Good Friday. It's just a common thing. I've not done it for my whole life since. So on Good Friday, I'm down the park. Someone's running at me. He drops his shoulder, goes the opposite way. I try and run around and catch him. My foot goes into the floor, blades. They're not round studs. Round studs turn. Blades don't. Yeah. So what happened? I turned, my foot didn't. My leg broke. So I've always been very specific with where the right equipment, where safe equipment, and practice that way. So your closing thoughts, horses, Marvin's broken leg. There's nothing else that you need to say.
I can't believe they've got 4 legs. I guess that's
every horse. Okay. I mean, you know, sometimes you get dogs that are injured and they have to amputate a leg. I've never seen them amputate a horse's leg. I've never seen a 3-legged horse. I just don't think that, I think they're too heavy for it. Anyone that knows about this, just let us know. Is it possible? Right, 2 things we need people to send in. Number 1, who would you have dinner with and interview? The Rock or Arnold Schwarzenegger? Number 2, is it possible for a horse to have 3 legs? Send them to @Marvin Burton or @Gavin on Instagram. We will happily take your feedback. Okay?
Yes. I think we need more questions like the Arnold one. We might have to open up with one of those every week.
Talking to the right man. I just
line them up.
All right then. He-Man or Batman?
Oh.
Right, Gav, we'll see you again.
Time on this.
Don't need to, mate. That's how quick I think. Bosh.
He-Man.
Why? Because you get more vitamin D.
Pants on.
I've had a coffee today. Right, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll hopefully have you again on another question and answer session with 3-legged horses. Speak to you again.
Right, so, mate. See you later.
Cheers.